Hey there, and welcome back to our Read Through the Bible in a Year series. Well, here we are, week 6, day number 2, starting up with another book of the Bible, the book of Numbers. So let's jump right into it. Today, looking at Numbers 1 through Numbers 5, and three things that I really want to speak about today. Number one, the numbers. Numbers lives up to its name, and there's lots of numbers in the book. And it starts out with this listing of the census that God took of all the males who were 20 years or older able to be a part of the army. And you know, it's almost kind of repetitive reading the way it reads out, but there is, I think, a couple of beautiful points here that we can draw from this. The number of males that it comes up with is 603,550. This goes along with what we were told in Exodus, that when they left Egypt, there was about 600,000 males leaving. Of course, there were also women and children in this number. So when you take that estimate, scholars take that and estimate that there's between 1 and 2 million, and probably towards the high side of that, 2 million people, Israelites actually, that left Egypt and are now camped out at Mount Sinai. So 2 million people that are going to be traveling here on their way from Egypt to the Promised Land. And with these numbers, I think we can see, there's a lot of things we can see, but two things that really are worth noting. Number one, these are numbers for praise. And here's what I mean by that. Remember how God has blessed the Israelite people, and as they are confronted with this census number and they think about the number of people they have become, that they've grown into a nation, that is a moment of praise. That God, keeping His promise that He's made to His people, has made them into a great people and a great nation. They left headed to Egypt the first time around, back with Joseph and them, with about 70, and now they are 2 million strong. So from 70 to 2 million, and that's just evidence and proof, and just a sign of just how much God has been blessing His people in these 400 plus years. So a number of praise, numbers that could elicit praise with the people. It's also a number that shows God's power and God's provision. We are going to see where these people are going to end up wandering around the wilderness for quite a few years because of something that happens in the forthcoming chapters in Numbers. But in this we see, and even in the time that they've already been traveling as they left Egypt to Mount Sinai now, God is providing for 2 million people as they travel around in the wilderness, meeting their every need of water and food and everything that they need to survive. God is providing for His people. So once again, it's a number that just not only should elicit praise as the people think about the blessing, but also just should elicit praise in the sense of realizing how powerful God is and that God provides for His people, even when they are an astronomical number of people. The second thing I wanted to point out today was the arrangement of the camp. You know, when we read this, it might seem kind of, why are we being told that these people camped on the north side, and these people were on the east side, and these were the west side, and this was the south side, their neighborhoods, and it all points to one fact. All these directions were given based on where they were in relationship to the tabernacle. God's tabernacle, where they understood what was a symbol of the presence of God in their camp, was at the very center. And then they all camped around this. So it was a visual daily reminder that God is to be at the center. And that's a reminder for us that God should be our focus, that God should be our center, that in Him is where the center of our life should be and the focus of our life should be. And the Israelites were reminded that every time they came out of their tent, every time they broke down camp and set up camp, that God is in the center of His people, and He dwells in the center, and that is where the focus should be. Kind of a beautiful thing there. Another thing, I said three. I have four things I want to talk about today. Third thing I want to talk about today is just point out that how the Levites, they all had specific jobs they had to do as they cared, the three different groups of Levites as they cared for the different parts of the tabernacle. And some of the Levites were the priests, had very specific jobs to do, and then some of the Levites were to do the day-to-day task, of taking care of things and of carrying the parts of the tabernacle around as they traveled. It's just a reminder here that God had this planned out, and God had a specific calling on this group of people. And God has a specific calling in each one of our lives. God has a general calling on all of our lives. To love Him, to obey Him, to love others, to take the gospel message to others in word and in deed. But God also has some specific callings that each one of us is different for each one of us. So we just want to be willing and prepared and trusting that God will reveal that to us, and that God will empower us to do whatever it is He has called us to do. And the final thing I want to talk about today, in chapter 5, the reading goes along pretty straightforward today, and then you hit chapter 5 and you have the test for an unfaithful wife, where the woman was to drink the bitter water. And you can read this and you can be like, wait a second, this is so totally unfair to the woman. Here it is, a woman whose husband, whether rightly or wrongly, is accusing her of possibly having been unfaithful in marriage, and makes her go stand before the priest and have to drink this bitter water, and if she was wrong, if she did it, then her body's gonna show the signs of it, but if she didn't do it, then she's going to be okay. But it might be read like, wait a second, this is so totally unfair, and it's just another example of the Bible picking on women and supporting men. Well, I think the way we look at this can it just kind of goes along with how we want to see things. Do we believe that God is picking on women, and the Bible is picking on women, and women were inferior and not as important as men? No, we can't believe that at all. Yes, it is a patriarchal society, but God said men and women are both created, in God's image. So then, do we want to read this from the point of view of that, maybe God is taking care of the women and providing and showing mercy? And that's the way I want to read it. So how can we read it from that point of view? Well, think about this. If there had been no provision like this in place, then a husband who suspected his wife could just take matters into his own hands. I think you're being unfaithful, so I'm going to deal with it myself. And that could work out horribly for the woman. With this, a measure was put into place to prevent a jealous husband from taking matters into his own hands and taking vengeance, right or wrong, out on his wife. Here there was an example of mercy, where this had to be taken out of the man's hands and put really into God's hands. And that's what's being done here. It's being put into God's hands. God will reveal the truth about what has happened here. Another thing, as we think about this, is that a husband. It doesn't say here that the husband had to drink the water if he was shown to be wrong, but a husband would think twice about just making a wild accusation against his wife if he knew that they were going to have to go stand in front of everybody. Because what happens if he makes this wild accusation and then his wife is proven in front of God and in front of the priest to be innocent? Then how does that make him look? So I think it's something that would make a husband think twice about making wild accusations against his wife, because he knew that if she was proven to be innocent, then that would look really, really bad on him. The Bible doesn't say that specifically, but I do believe that had to be part of what's going on here. So in the way we look at this, I think it's not looking at it like from a against woman point of view, but in a lot of ways it's for the protection of women point of view, and making sure that angry husbands didn't take matters into their own hands, making sure that this was put in the hands of God, and making husbands think twice before they go saying crazy things. So today, as we conclude talking about the book of Numbers, may we be people who just are reminded of the goodness of God, that God keeps His promises, that God blesses us, that God provides for us, that God is powerful, May we be people who, like the Israelites with the tabernacle at the center of their camp, may we have God always at the center of our hearts in the way we live every day. May we live our lives walking with God and fulfilling His call in our lives every day. May we realize the specific callings that God is giving us and know that He will provide for us to live that out. May we thank God for the grace that He shows and the mercy that He shows and the kindness that He shows to every single one of us. Have a great day. See you next time.